I'm Christine, but I write under the pen name C.W. Rose. I am a fantasy and romance author by night. I am a healthcare professional by day. And I write about ordinary Asian women who find themselves in extraordinary circumstances. I wrote this book for anyone who's had to choose between duty and their heart. I would read the backs of ketchup bottles, I would read the backs of mustard bottles, and all the ingredients, all the nutrition facts. I feel like this is kind of where I was meant to end up. And this is meant to be my journey, and hopefully I can help somebody, even if it's just to inspire somebody to keep going. If you're still querying, to never give up, right? And then even if you published a book, like never, and also never give up. Just keep getting a book out there, keep getting the word out there, and sooner or later the right person will find it. And
Welcome to Stories and Stanza. I am your host Abhra. I am a poet and I created this podcast to bring you a montage of real stories that make life beautiful as poetry. Some stories are my own and some are from the wonderful people who have chosen to join me as guests and bring their incredible journey. Stories include a creator's passion or unfolding branches of human emotions in the face of failure, or unfamiliar chapters from the past that remind us about the richness and vastness of life. Embark on a voyage of exploration, contemplation, and motivation with me. Please join me in welcoming today's guest speaker. Hi, Christine. Welcome to Stories and Stanza. How are you doing today?
I am good. Hi, Abhra. Thank you so much for having me on today. You've had some really, really amazing guests, and I am so honored to be one of them.
Thank you. This
Uh,
podcast started earlier this year, and what I noticed is I am an independently published poet, and I found that a lot of writers, whether they are traditionally published or independently published, they find it difficult to promote their work, or they uh, find it challenging to talk about their own work. So that was the main idea where I got started, is that if I created a podcast and then they can come and talk about their book, now they can share it in any um, places and social media and such, that it introduces the writer to the audience and to the readers. And I feel that a writer can interview a writer best. So
I
that
agree.
was the context for this podcast, because if someone who has gone through a similar kind of journey, it's probably best for the sake of the discussion. So I'm looking forward to talk to you today. And yes, I have had some interesting guests, and their creativity is so diverse. And I feel that whenever I talk to a writer, it enriches me in the process. So thank you for taking the time and coming to our podcast. So, before we get started, could you give a brief author introduction to our audience, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi everyone. I'm Christine, but I write under the pen name C.W. Rose. I am a fantasy and romance author by night. I am a healthcare professional by day. And I write about ordinary Asian women who find themselves in extraordinary circumstances. And they find themselves and sometimes, all right, usually love on the way. And also about a cinnamon roll men who adore them. I'm also a certified scuba diver. I'm a certified lifeguard. I'm an ocean child, a karaoke enthusiast, an avid reader, and I am a dog mom to a little Pekingese that looks suspiciously like an Ewok.
That is amazing. You're wearing so
Thank you.
many hats.
Thank
And
you.
and I saw the recent shoot you did with the marmots. That was great.
That was surprisingly fun. Yeah, it was definitely a lot like more different than what I was expecting, and it was a lot more work. Trying to swim with a mermaid tail, I'd have to like catch my breath every few seconds. Like I'm really tired after doing this, but it was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. So, today we'll be talking about your book and your journey of the book happening, what was your writing discipline, what worked, what would you do it differently, and what are your next steps as a writer. So let's get started. Can you briefly tell us about the book, what it is called, and who is it for?
Yeah, so my book is Ocean Song, and it's actually my debut novel. And it is an adult contemporary romantasy that is an Asian Little Mermaid meets Romeo and Juliet, but set in the grittiness of the real world. So, first, for a really quick blurb, 24-year-old Angie Song, she's an aspiring marine biologist. She's just returned to her Alaskan hometown to work at her family's docks for the summer. But while she's there, she discovers that fish are mysteriously vanishing from the sea and starving her small fishing village. And when she investigates, she finds that merfolk are responsible. So her family declares war on the mer, which results in a brutal fight for control of the sea's resources. And in the midst of the conflict, this is a romantasy, so she falls in love with the mer prince, and she puts everyone and everything that's dear to her in danger. The major themes in this are feminism, environmentalism, and sustainability, family betrayal, and loss. And I wrote this book for anyone who's had to choose between duty and their heart, who are feminists or feminist allies, or environmentalists, and especially ocean conservationists, lovers of merfolk mythology, and romantics at heart.
There is a lot to take from the brief introduction. So, in
Mm-hmm.
this section, and first of
Mm-hmm.
all, congratulations. This is your debut book. So, you
Yeah, thank
must be
you.
very excited. Um,
Excited and tired.
it is a
It's
long,
been a lot.
it's a long process to
Yeah,
get to see a book printed, definitely. So
for
I
sure.
request my guests in this section if they would like to read something from their book so that the listeners can get to know about the book. It's a little bit of a teaser as well. So yeah, up to you, or whatever you want to read from your book.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So I have a little bit of excerpt. It's about 2 paragraphs long. And this is one of my favorites because it's the first time that Angie, our protagonist, realizes that merfolk might just exist and gives it a hint of things to come. Yet the sea water rippled with angry waves. A strong wind gust barreled through and walloped her face. Hey, what's that? Stefan pointed to the water. The other divers crowded around them. A dark streak of scales appeared with 2 flowing, transparent caudal fins. The boat rocked again, a violent wave smacking the hull, and Angie clung to the sides to keep her balance. The waters calmed once the tail vanished from her sight. Angie drew her head back, covering her mouth with her palm. The other divers chatted in low murmurs. She sat, resting her hands on her lap, and took a deep breath so she wouldn't still be anxious when she started diving and burned through her oxygen too fast. The bumpiness and waves appeared when the mermaid, some other sea creature, appeared and calmed when it disappeared, as if it carried the turbulent waters on its back. That's the end.
Thank you. I was getting into the moment and I could start visualizing this as a fantasy movie, as we
I'm so
have,
glad.
yeah, there is a lot of world building into the fantasy novels. So, thank you for sharing.
Of
Can
course.
you tell us about how you started writing and how you got inspired to write?
Sure. So I actually don't have a moment where I had like a flash of realization and thought, this is it. I want to be a writer or an author. I never had that. But what I do know was that since I was a little kid, I wasn't a very avid reader. And I would read everything. I would read the backs of ketchup bottles. I would read the backs of mustard bottles and all the ingredients, all the nutrition facts, even if I didn't understand them. And I would read like every last word on the sign. I actually wrote my first novella. Sorry, my first book, and I say quote unquote book in 3rd grade, and it was a picture book about fishes. And then I wrote my first novella when I was about 12 or 13. So if you know, so I know some entertainers say that maybe their profession found them versus them finding it, and I do feel the way about writing that it found me versus the other way around. That makes sense.
Yes, and I think that it takes a enormous amount of preparation and reading before you get to the point
So
that you start writing on your own.
I agree.
Yeah, you are a scuba enthusiast. Did that play a role into getting the context of this book?
It did because it did help in terms of like I kind of knew what was involved in diving. Like I kind of knew the equipment that you needed, and I knew what it felt like to be in the water. But that being said, I am not a deep diver, and I know in the book they dive to like really, really deep depths to find the merfolk. I have never gone that deep. So there was a lot of research involved in like the deep sea diving. But I was able to take the basics and like, the procedures and like I said, and that feeling of like weightlessness when you first dive under the water. And hopefully I was able to describe that well in the book.
I'm not a good swimmer at all, so that's why I was just curious. And when you started writing your book, can you tell us about what was your research and preparation for writing?
Oh, I did a lot. Like I felt like I spent half the time researching. So the book is set in Alaska, modern Alaska. I've never actually lived there, even though I visited. And it's also set in the deep sea, which again, I've never been to. So I had to research a lot about, so for the deep sea, I had to research a lot about like what animals would be at certain depths and what kind of plant life would be at certain depths. What even things like what colors, they might not be able to see now that there's no sunlight. I also had to think about how people would move because you're in a weightless, constantly moving environment, even the temperatures of the sea and the direction of the tides and things like that. And then for Alaska, I was fortunate in that I had coworkers and patients who either they had lived there at some point or they have family there. So I would ask them everything, like what's the local slang, like what's the weather like during the summer? Because I know Alaska has long days and long nights. And I would just ask like what general like the lifestyle was like there. And they were always happy to tell me. So I appreciate that with them very much. And I used to also look up things like what were the weather patterns for like May? What time did the sun rise? What time did the sun set? What was the temperature? Is it windy? Is it rainy? So even just little things like that. And also, like I said, knowing the local slang, like local cuisine, and just like what is life like there for people. And finally, my protagonist is a dock worker. So I would go on like job search sites and type in like dock worker and see what the duties were. So I kind of had a better idea of what she would be doing every day.
You mentioned that uh, the the book is a fantasy novel, but it has the elements of feminism, environments, and other things. Can you tell us that what is the message that you want to carry in your book, and what would something that would appeal to the readers?
So the major messages I want to convey. So I do hope my readers will take away what they want from it. And I know people have taken away different messages, but the biggest message I want to say is to kind of take care of the world around us because you never know who you may be hurting or helping with your actions, right? So in the book, the merfolk accuse humans of overfishing, destroying their sea life, destroying the ecosystem. But like we do that, and for the humans, they're just like we need to eat. So so it's kind of a back and forth where they end up learning like to take care of, or they both come to a compromise and how to take care of the world around them. And it's just a message of everything that you do has a positive or negative impact on the world around you. And I think that's a big message I hope that readers took away or will take away from the story.
That's great. Why I
Mhm.
ask that is because uh, whenever we are as a writer, we're sharing a story, even
Yeah,
if it is a fantasy story, it is trying to tell the reader something. And it
yeah,
means a lot that what the reader carries forward with them once they have read the book. So
of course.
that was interesting, and
Thank you.
especially in today's world, that what you said, like you there is a split between your heart and your duties.
Yeah.
Yes, so that conflict is always there, and you have that subtle message of caring for the environment, but at the same time, you have to
Hmm.
survive. So where do you go? So I
Yeah,
think
exactly. So it's like, where do we draw the line? you
Correct.
know?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you told us about your research and about the book happening. How long did it take to write the book and edit the book? Do you want to share something with us?
So I am a really slow drafter. I'm a very slow writer. I'm a very slow editor. Uh, I don't know, just because I guess I just. But as far as writing and editing, so to write the book, it took me about 6 months to do the outline because whenever before I start writing, I always have like an outline set out, and then about another 6 months to actually write the first draft. So after that, I let it sit for a little bit. I sent it off to beta readers. Um, and then I spent about another year or so just making constant tweaks, getting beta reader feedback, taking their feedback. And then I started querying it to publishers and agents about a year and a half after I started with that. And then even still, until I saw my publisher last year, I was still tweaking like endlessly, and making tweaks to the storyline, to the grammar, to the wording, just because I feel like as creatives, our work is never done. There's always something
Absolutely.
to fix.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And how was your publication journey? How did it work out? What didn't work out? Do you want to share anything around that?
So my publication journey felt very, very long. It spanned close to 6 years. I spent and then I queried actually two books, and my first one actually died in the query trenches, as we lovingly call it. So I would have about 250 rejections, and there were times where it was tough to keep going. I would see other writers around me getting agented, getting published, and I was so happy for them. But at the same time, I wonder what would happen for me. Right. So I would get close, like I would get full requests, and then I would get a form rejection the same day. I would get another full request and then a form rejection on that full request. And it just kept feeling like I was getting close, but I never really got there. And then I just feel like as writers, and I know you understand, it takes a certain kind of like a certain kind of like stubbornness and like holding on to a little shred of hope to keep going.
Yes, definitely. It takes a lot of courage and motivation to keep doing what we are doing, and that
Yeah,
I guess self-conviction that yes, we can do it. We can finish this book, and this book is going to see the light of the day.
absolutely.
Yep. So now that the book is out, you've written the book, the book is edited and all that. So if you look back, would you do anything differently?
I don't know. It's a really good question. Um, so I think the only thing maybe I could have done differently because I had a hard time so writing the underwater scenes. But and I guess the only thing I would do differently is maybe do more research. But I was fortunate that my editors were really good about it and they kind of helped me a lot with the world building. But thinking like back and knowing how I am, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I feel like this is kind of where I was meant to end up, and this is meant to be my journey, and hopefully I can help somebody, like being on the path that I was on, even if it's just to inspire somebody to keep going.
And now that your book is there and you are through that process of ideation to writing, editing, publishing, that
Mhm.
long haul, how do you see your next steps as a writer? What do you want to do next?
So of course I'd love to, my goal is to keep writing. I love it. I can't live without it. So right now I actually finished book two. The outline is with my editor. So I'm just kind of waiting for next steps on that. And aside from that, I'm working on some like side projects that are completely different from this one. Like I am writing a contemporary second chance romance that is set in my childhood hometown of Singapore. And I'm also working on a completely separate romantasy, which is based around Chinese mythology. Other than that, I have a whole bunch of like works in progresses and ideas in mind. I just have to get started.
So you're going to remain very, very
Yeah.
busy with your creative pursuits. And
Yeah, I do think so.
I wish you all the best for that. And now that
Thank you.
we have understood the context of your book and your next course of things, so
Hmm.
how do you see that, you know, in this whole duration, what is your support system? What kept you motivated, and was it your own determination, or was there any other factor that really worked for you?
I want to say it was my own stubbornnness because once I get started on something, I have to see it through to the end, no matter what. And I know that, and I know that mindset has annoyed some people in my life. So once I have a mindset of something, I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I want to say it was mostly, yeah, mostly my own stubbornness, and also, like I said before, like holding on to that one shred of hope that that this book will see the light of day. This book will find its champion. It'll find the right agent or the right editor. And fortunately, found the right editor. I also have a really wonderful writing group, who right now they kind of cheer us on, we cheer each other on whenever we are feeling down, whenever we don't feel like writing, and we also celebrate our successes. So I've met some really good writing friends throughout the journey.
And is there any feedback on the book that you would like to share with our audience today? Like
Sure,
any
let me just
testimonial that you
find.
received?
Yeah, let me find the two testimonials. So yeah, I mean, if you choose to pick up Ocean Song, if this sounds like something you would enjoy, of course, I hope that you love Angie and Kaden as much as I enjoy writing them. And I also got a really, really wonderful endorsement from the author of the Hurricane Wars, Dea Guanzon. She is a USA Today and also New York Times bestselling author. And she endorsed Ocean Song by saying, with prose as entrancingly sharp as her iconic protagonist Beloved in Alaska, C.W. Rose shines an invigorating new light on familiar folklore in his beautiful debut. Ocean Song is rich in atmosphere, mystery, and all the different forms that love can take, from the romantic to family bonds to affinity with the land. This is a brilliant and moving addition to the fantasy genre, each page brimming with all the rhythm and depth of the Bering Sea.
That is beautifully
And I was, yeah,
crafted.
and I
Yeah.
saw that and I almost cried. I'm like, oh my God.
I think we have come towards the end of our discussion. I have covered the areas that I usually ask my writer guests. Is there anything you would like to share with the audience that we have not covered so far about the book or about yourself?
Not particularly, but except to say that if you're still querying, to never give up, right? And then even if you published a book, like never, and also never give up. Just keep getting a book out there, keep getting the word out there, and sooner or later the right person will find it. And I feel like that makes it all worth it. So recently, super quickly, I was suffering from imposter syndrome. I feel like we all writers suffer from that at some point in their careers. And so my day job, like I said, I work as a physical therapist, and I work with people who are wheelchair users. And I have one patient who has lower limb paralysis. So he had asked to read my book. He bought it, he read it, and he told me that he really enjoyed it, which was, very, very heartwarming to hear. And he told me that I really saw myself in the merman and the way he struggled to move on land. He said, because I feel the same, that I have trouble moving on land. He said, so I saw myself in that, and thank you for writing it. And it's just those little moments and someone telling you that makes it all worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
That the way your written words, when they speak to other people, then that's the biggest reward you can possibly
of
have.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah, like somebody needs to read your words, right? Somebody needs to hear it, what you have to say.
definitely. And I wish all the best to your book and all your future endeavor. And
Thank you so
thank you for
much.
taking the time to come to talk to Stories and Stanza today.
So thank you so much for having me. And I hope you have a wonderful, it's daytime where you are, right, in Melbourne?
Yep, I just started my day, and by the looks of it, it's going to be a rainy day.
Yeah, I feel like it was raining here earlier, so I feel like we're all getting that now.
Yep,
Well,
thank you
have a
once.
wonderful day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you once again for joining.
thank you so much for having me on.